In early June, the two most influential dollar billionaires in the world clashed with each other on social media. Of course, we're talking about the conflict between Donald Trump and Elon Musk. But amid the exchange of jabs, one of the Musk's accusations seemed to go unnoticed. A frightening prediction that already in 2025, the world could face an economic crisis, and that was the message in a tweet from the founder of Tesla. This is Anna and the Eye of Crypto channel. Today, I want to talk about how realistic the prospects of a major economic crisis are and how it could affect the cryptocurrency market. So, let's get into it. So first, let me quote Elon Musk. "The Trump tariffs will cause a recession in the second half of this year." This is what the richest man in the world said about the policies of the current US president. It's not surprising that this tweet didn't attract much public attention. After all, amid the conflict, there were also calls for impeachment and other messages that caught more attention from the media. By the way, not long ago, I did a separate episode where I talked in detail about the Musk-Trump conflict and how the standoff between the crypto president and the Doge father could affect the crypto market. So if you haven't seen it yet, definitely check out the link. But let's get back to the prediction. Although Musk later admitted he went too far in criticizing Trump and even deleted some posts, personally, I believe we shouldn't underestimate this tweet. Yes, maybe Musk posted it in the heat of the moment and in an emotionally unstable state, but the idea that Trump's tariffs could provoke a recession is not new at all. Moreover, it seems the voices warning us of an impending and unprecedented economic crisis are getting louder. For example, American billionaire and founder of Bridgewater Associates, Ray Dalio, is worried Trump's tariff war could spark something worse than just a recession. A similar view is held by former IMF employee Desmond Langman, who is convinced that Trump's economic policies pose the risk of inflation and recession. The CEO of JP Morgan, Jamie Dimon, is also saying that the US economy may soon face problems. Of course, not everyone blames Trump for the coming economic collapse, but many, including those in the crypto community, are sounding the alarm. One of them is Robert Kiyosaki, who constantly urges people to survive the coming crisis with Bitcoin, gold, and silver, because the crisis of central banks is just around the corner. Also, if you want more, many see some hints of the grim scenario from Michael Burry, the man who predicted the subprime mortgage crisis of 2007. Of course, you might treat such warnings skeptically, but unfortunately, their concerns are not baseless. Well, first of all, the real US economy already showed signs of cooling at the start of 2025. Real GDP fell by 0.2% in the first quarter. That is, instead of growth, a decline. That's already a sign of recession itself. And secondly, according to some estimates, US debt servicing costs in 2025 may approach $1 trillion. That's a serious burden on the economy. And in case of a recession, all of this could limit the Federal Reserve's actions, for example, make it harder to cut rates, and the situation could only get worse. And thirdly, in times of global economic shocks or just before such events, the prices of safe haven assets usually rise. Things like precious metal, such as gold and silver, and gold's market price has been rising rapidly in 2025. In March, it exceeded $3,000, and by April, it briefly hit $3,500 per ounce. Why are people pouring money into such assets? It's very simple. They want to make sure their savings aren't burned away by inflation and prefer to wait out uncertain times in stable, reliable, and time-tested assets. It's no longer about making a profit, but about preserving what they already have. And by the way, gold prices often rise against the backdrop of military conflicts between countries, and the situation in the Middle East in the summer of 2025 also doesn't encourage stable global economic growth. But can we ride out a possible upcoming recession with cryptocurrency? Well, the answer is not clear-cut. By the way, just in case, now is a good time to remind you that neither this nor any other video on my channel is financial advice, so the final decision on which assets to use as a hedge, whether gold, Bitcoin or something else, is up to you. But here's what I want to draw your attention to. Bitcoin usually has a long-term upward trend. This means that over time, Bitcoin tends to grow and reach new mind-blowing heights, but only over the long haul. In the short term, things can look very, very different. And the thing is, large investment firms and even entire countries have already started investing in Bitcoin and other cryptocurrencies. That's why its price is becoming more and more connected to the world of traditional finance, the very epicenter of economic crises and recessions. And today, BTC is actively being bought by companies from the S&P 500 index, and even the US itself is forming a strategic reserve in its asset. By the way, one of the Donald Trump's campaign promises even mentioned as unusual solution to the national debt problem, using Bitcoin reserves and cryptocurrency. So, in other words, the very system that causes recessions and crises is increasingly trying to grab hold of crypto like a life raft to solve its own problems. Yes, in the past, Bitcoin was certainly conceived as money not tied to fiat system, banks or the government. And for a while, it worked that way. Bitcoin gained value far more than any government currency or even public company stocks. But over the years, Bitcoin's price seems to have become part of the global system, not its alternative. Don't get me wrong, I'm not criticizing Bitcoin, so let's just look at the situation realistically. Remember the COVID crisis? Back in March 2020, stock markets around the world saw a major drop, and Bitcoin lost more than 60% as well, and it took several months to recover. And hit like if 5 years later you still regret not buying Bitcoin during that crash, then it was below $4,000. But in my opinion, no need to be upset. Better to look for new opportunities in the market, to be honest. But still, based on the experience of the last crisis, Bitcoin may only be a sustainable hedge asset for those who know how to wait patiently. The entire history of this cryptocurrency is a story of extreme volatility, rapid spikes, and equally rapid and prolonged crashes. And that's why, in my view, we shouldn't expect Bitcoin to be a safe haven when recession hits. It could well fall like other assets before entering a new growth cycle. And the best strategy in case of a financial crisis is still diversification and portfolio investing. When one asset falls, another may rise and vice versa. By the way, remember I mentioned gold? Well, in 2025, you don't have to buy gold bars or jewelry because there are stable coins on the crypto market that are pledged to the price of gold. And this means that the cryptocurrency market allows for this kind of diversification. The stable coins, you can hold savings in gold, in fiat currencies like the dollar or euro, and finally, in Bitcoin and altcoins. So, protecting yourself from recession with a crypto portfolio is absolutely possible. You just need to pick the right tools. And do you want me to make a top list of the best anti-crisis cryptocurrencies? And if so, please leave a comment and I'll definitely make a video about it. With that, today's episode comes to an end. Thank you for watching, and this is Anna. I'll see you next time.